Hi, hello, and welcome back to MERAKI'S method and gold making for casuals. Today we are going to look at our second part in our TradeSkillMaster mini tutorial. It's going to be super light, super casual as ever. We're just doing the real basics just to try and get you guys familiar with the add-on, because I know when you first install it, it can be a bit overwhelming. So we're just trying to make it a little bit more familiar and make it a little bit easier for you guys to get involved with it, because it is an incredible tool when you can use it. So today we are going to talk about the add-on itself, and we're going to talk about the app a little bit and setting up the settings for the add-on rather than the actual gold making part of it itself. So the first thing we're going to look at is the desktop add-on. You'll find that normally minimized in your tray, and it looks a bit like this when you bring it up. It tells you your current version. It makes sure you've got everything up to date here, and it tells you what realms you're on and if your data is up to date and when it was last updated. In here you've also got your add-on version, so it tells you when you were last updated your add-on. As you can see here, if you have Burning Crusade or Classic, you can have TSM on those as well. I don't play Classic, so I don't have either of those. Then you've got your backups, and again, if you are installing new profiles and things and you come across an error and you want to go back to, say, yesterday, you knew TSM was working fine yesterday and today something has broken, you can go into your backups, scroll down to the one that you want to go back to, double click it, and it will basically go back to that backup. So it's really, really handy, and these are all kept here. And then you've got your accounting exports. You can pick which account you want to export. There's my main account there. You can pick which realm. There's my main realm. And you can pick which data you want to. So if you want your sales, your purchases, your expires, your income, your cancelled auctions, or your expenses, or you can collect them all if you want all of the data, and then you can export a CSV file with all of that information. If you're into making spreadsheets or anything like that, you can get that information there. And then you have your settings up here in this orange button at the top, and that will show you in general here. It shows you where your directory is. You can set up your realms, which is what we did on the website, but if you haven't done it yet, if you've installed the add-on and you haven't been through the website, this little button here will take you into setting up your realms. This shows you which channel you're using, and you can ask it to run at startup or not. You can start minimized or not, minimize the system tray and show confirmation on exit. So basically you can set that up as you prefer. Notifications, it will give you little toasts. If you want TSM to give you little toasts, you can have it do that when there's new data, when there's a new update, when a new backup's made, or when there's new news. If you want, I don't have any notifications because I do not like pings, so I have them all turned off, but you can turn them on if you like them. In here it's backing up. You can tell it when to back up, how often to back up, when to delete them, so minimum backup period, when to delete them, and then you can open the folder where it's keeping them all if you want to go in there and look at that yourself. And in advanced, you can only be used if you're instructed to do so by a member of the TSM team. So if you're having real issues and you're speaking to one of the team members in Discord or via their support services, they might ask you to come in here and do that, but that's where that is. Alright, so that is the app. You don't want to X out of this, because if you X out of this, it's not collecting all your pricing data and then putting that into your game. So you kind of want to keep this running. It's very, very tiny. You won't notice it running. We just minimize it and it goes down to your... Okay, so now we're in game. You're probably going to have a TSM icon on your mini map down here somewhere. I have all my icons stashed up here in this bazooka bar we talked about last week. Here's the TSM one. So I'm going to open that. When you open TSM, you automatically get greeted with this dashboard page. Down the left here you have the news and updates. So that's what we talked about this when we were looking at the website last week, how they're working on some fixes for Dragonflight crafting, because it's still a bit touch and go. The patch day kind of broke TSM a little bit yesterday too, but they have rolled out a lot of fixes overnight that seem to have mended most of those problems, thankfully. The real gem of the dashboard is this part here, and I love this. This came new with one of the more recent big updates that TSM did. They brought in this dashboard and I absolutely adore it. So up here you can set your parameters. It says player gold, so you can pick all of your players, or you can pick a particular character. If you want to look at a particular character, you can do that, or you can collect them all. And then you've got 1 day, 1 week, And then you've got your data over here, and you can select different time frames. So there's my all. You can tell where I bought expensive gold sinks. There's 2 years, 1 year. It's all going in the right direction, thankfully. 6 months, 3 months, and then you get down to the last recently when I've been doing very, very little. This is the last week when I've tried to catch myself up, and then yeah, there you go. Patch day. So basically, you can select your own time frame, and it'll show you different things. And under that, you've got your highs and your lows. So your highest amount, your lowest amount, your daily sales, your daily purchases, your top sale, and your top purchases. So that's all very useful information to have there. So down here, it goes into more detail on that. You've got your sales. So the top one is your total gold earned, your average earned per day, and your top item. Under that, you have your expenses, which tells you your total gold spent. I've spent an awful lot of money this last while. Average spent per day, and your top item. And then your profit. So your total profit, your average profit per day, and your top item. Again, my top item recently has been sun-cured boots, because as we spoke about when we were doing transmogs the last couple of times, we've been gathering up vendor items to sell for the patch, and one of the sets that you can't get everywhere is one of the ones from Silvermoon, and sun-cured boots are in them, so they sell very well, and they've come up here as selling very well as well. So there's a lot of information on this dashboard, and you can change it. You can change your different characters, you can change your different time frames, and obviously these are going to change depending on your time frames. If I go to my last week, my top expense was Elixir of Tongues, because I'd ran out and we were running a roleplay event in Dalaran, so I went and restocked 100 Elixirs of Tongues. So my big expense this last week was that, and my biggest sales and my biggest profit have been on transmog vendor items that I've been selling, because they're now transmogable. Alright, so that's the dashboard. The other thing we're going to look at today is the settings, and there's quite a few of these, so settle in. Okay, your settings tab is up here at the top. It's the last one on the list. Don't worry about these ones. We're going to come back to those ones yet. It's more important right now that we get the add-on itself set up properly and working properly, and get your tooltips and things like that working properly before we delve into making groups and operations and things, because those things are not going to be any use to you if you don't have this foundation in place first. Please excuse any cat noises you can hear in the background. My neighbour is away. We're feeding their cat, but their cat is thinks it should eat 5 times a day. So every time it's not actually eating, it's over here shouting about the fact that it's not eating. So sorry about that. Alright, so in settings here, you've got your general options first, and you've got your profiles, and you've got your account syncing. These little arrows, by the way, you can use them to minimize groups of settings. That's the same. It does the same all the way through. So if you've got when you're setting up your groups of items, those little arrows do the same. They're basically signaling a drop-down list. So if you start from the bottom one, account syncing is if you have 2 accounts. I have 2 accounts, so as you can see, it has synced to all the characters on my other account. You can do that there. So you need to log into both your accounts. You need to type in the name of the logged in character on the other account, and then it merges the data. Working on they're working on improving this feature so that it works even smoother in the future. That was one of the things they mentioned in their blog post. Up here you have profiles. I have a lot of profiles, as you can see. I have a few from other content creators, just because I like to see what they're doing. I have my own here, and then I have a bunch of ones that I've literally just been messing around with. If I'm trying to test something out, I try not to put it into my main actual profile in case it breaks everything and doesn't work. So I test it out on any of these smaller ones before I add anything in. But you can make as many profiles as you like, and you can swap between them as you want. You can even create macros to swap between those, but we'll go into that in another day, or maybe I'll just drop that into the Discord channel for you guys if you want to have a macro where you can switch between 2 different profiles if you have 2 that you use frequently. And then in the top we have general options. So this is just some, as it says, general options. Do you want to store your operations globally? That means do you want to store the operations for one profile and have them available to any of your other profiles. So basically it means what it says. Do you want to store them globally? If you want to have different operations attached to different profiles and you want to keep them all separate, you don't need to do this. But if you want to have your operations available for all of your profiles, you can click this button. And prevent closing the auction house with the escape key. I do this all the frickin' time. I should absolutely tick that one because I have a bad habit of fat fingering the escape key and end up exiting out of the auction house mid-scan. It is infuriating. If you want to stop that happening, there's where you do it. Filter group item list based on the following price source. So if you have a preferred price source, the general one that they put in here, this is just the one it comes with, is DB market. So that's just your database market average. So that's just the standard. If you're going by a particular price source yourself, if you know an awful lot about price sources and you want to filter things by your own price source, you can put that in there. Which chat tab do you want it to use for error messages and all those kind of things? Do you want it to forget any particular character? Is there a character on that you have that you don't want to use TSM on, or you don't want TSM to pay attention to? If you want it to basically forget a character, you can do that. Or ignore guilds. You can have it ignore certain guilds. Like I have 2 vault guilds here, but this one is not a vault guild. This is an actual guild that I am part of. So I have ignored that because I don't want it to be trying to take materials from that guild, because those are not my materials. They're everybody's materials. So I've had that one on ignore, and that's what that feature does. Okay, so that's what the general options are. Then this one is important here. This is your tooltip settings. And there's 2 parts to this. The general part, which is up here. Do you want to enable TSM tooltips? You do. You just do. You flat out do. The answer is always yes. Can't imagine anyone saying no. There's so much information you can put in a TSM tooltip about items in the game that it is so incredibly useful that I cannot imagine you wouldn't want to use it. And then if you want to embed that into the normal tooltip, you click this one. I do, because I don't like multiple boxes stacking on top of each other and things like that. So I embed it all together in just one tooltip. So when I hover over the item, just one tooltip shows up and it has all the information that I want in it. You can select the price format you want. So if you want it to come up with the little coins, or you want it to come up with the text, that's fine. Either way, it will be colorized, so it's very handy. Here it says show on modifier, so that means it'll show the tooltip when you have a modifier clicked. So if you want it to not be always popping up, if you are in competitive content or whatever, and you don't want big long item tooltips to be popping up when you're doing things, you can have it only show that on when you click a modifier as well. And the last one here is your destroy value source. So this is the source you wanted to use. TSM will give you the destroy value of items, and the destroy value is essentially, if you have a herb, the herb is worth, say, 10 gold on the auction house, but you could also mill that herb into various pigments and things. So it will also give you an estimated destroy value according to the price of those pigments you're likely to get from that ore. So this is basically asking you, where does it want to take that information from? Is it the average sell, max sell, minimum sell, the average buy, smart average buy, or auction DB market value? I just tell it to do auction DB market value because that's the one that comes as standard with the add-on as it's packaged, and I don't mess with it. I just let it do that one there. It's never been too big of a problem for me. But if you want to get really, really detailed about the different values and things that are using, it can obviously be very useful if you do. But it's for a more advanced user. And if that's you, fly on. The next part here is the tooltip options themselves. They have updated this recently to include this example tooltip, and this is fantastic because, as you can see here, it highlights the ones it's going to show. So the ones that are highlighted here are the ones that are going to show on your tooltip, so you can see all the information that you're getting, and it also has them broken up into groups here as well. So the first one is groups and operations. If you want to see the group name the group that item is in, that will show you that here. If it doesn't matter to you what group that item is in, take that off. I like to see what group my items are in. just because it allows me to hover over an item and see if I already have it in a group or not. And then you can see the auctioning operation attached to that item. So you can see if it has an auctioning operation attached to it or not, and if so, what that is. If you name your auctioning operations really well, so that they tell you what the operation is, which we'll get to when we talk about operations, then that will give you a lot of information. Like say you have named your groups everything less than 15k. So less than 15k is the name of your operation group that sells things less than 15k. You can see that tooltip and you'll know, oh, I have this in a group and it normally sells for less than 15k, and that might help you make a decision then about what you're going to do with that item. You can, if you want, see if it has a crafting operation. If you have a crafting operation attached, you can have that show up. Mailing operation, shopping operation, sniper operation, vendoring operation, or warehouse operation. So basically this is all telling you information about what you have set up for that item. I just like it to tell me if I have a group and if I have an auctioning operation. But like I said, if you would find it useful to see if that item, if you have a crafting operation set up for that item, if you're mailing that item to someone in one of your particular characters, if you have a shopping operation set up for that item, if that item's in your sniper operation or in your vendoring or in your warehousing. If you want to have that information show up, you can click all of these, and then as you can see here, all of that information is going to come up and it's going to show you every single operation you have attached to that item when you hover over it. So again, depending on your use, you decide which ones of these that you would find useful. And again, it's not set in stone. You can come back and add or remove these later if you think you want them now and then you find you never use them. Come back and take them off again. It's really simple. The next step down is the value. This shows you the different value, because an item has more than one value, as we've discussed with the destroy value. So you can show this in different ways. You can show the full destroy tooltip, which is this one here, which tells you the prospecting value of this is 20 copper. And it tells you the 100% chance you're going to get this particular item times 10, and that's how much that would be worth. So it's telling you the percentage likelihood, the item you're going to get, and how many of them you're likely to get. So say if you destroy this herb, you are 100% chance going to get certain pigment and 10 of them, and this is how much that's going to go for. Now obviously it's never 100%, but you know, that's the idea here. So that's the full destroy one. The simple destroy tooltip just gives you the 20%. It doesn't tell you what you're getting, it doesn't tell you how many of them, it just tells you, well, it amounts to an estimated value of 20 copper. So you can choose yourself which one you want. If you do an awful lot of destroying, maybe you want the more full one so that you know what you're actually getting. And then there's a convert value too, which is for things like your elements, your primals, your motes. They have a convert value, so they're worth so much as individuals, then they convert to a bigger one that's worth more. The bigger one converts to 10 that's worth more. So there's a conversion value as well. The full conversion value again tells you the estimated value, the items and the number of items that you're likely to get and how you got to that estimated value. So again, you can choose full or you can choose simple. Entirely up to you. I have the two simple ones on because it doesn't really matter to me, all that information. I try to keep my tooltips not too massive, so I make them simple where I can. Then you've got a vendor buy price and vendor sell price. This might not be important to you. I buy a lot of vendor items. I sell a lot of vendor items. So I like to know when I hover over an item, if it has a vendor buy price, I know I can get that item from a vendor, so I will not buy it on the auction house, for example. That's generally what I use vendor buy price for, is just to tell whether or not an item has one. And then the vendor sell price is when I'm posting things on the auction house, I like to be able to see, well, am I going to get an actual decent profit for this, or is it just, might as well just send it to sell it to the vendor. Yeah, so those two I have up. You choose yours. If you have a custom price source, and we're going to talk about custom price sources last, but if you have your own custom price source that you've made and you want that to show up on your tooltip, you can click this bottom one as well. Yeah. The next one is inventory. Inventory, I think, is another very useful one, and again, I have full inventory on for this. The full inventory is this here. You can see I've got it tells me not only how many of the item I have, which is 22 total, but it tells me who has them and where they have them. So I know that Sariel has 22 of those, 5 of them in his bags, 5 of them in the bank, 5 of them on the auction house, and 9 of them in his mail. So that's where he has those 22. And 1 in a guild vault. If we go to the simple inventory, you just get this one line. It says inventory. I have 23, 18 on players, none on alts, 1 in a guild, 4 on the AH. So it doesn't tell you which characters have them. It just tells you that you have 18 on your characters. So you can pick which one you want depending on how spread out your inventory is and how much you have a need of that. Next one down is accounting. So accounting is basically all the price information. It shows you your purchase information. So what you purchased it for, your minimum you've purchased it for, the average you purchased it for, and the max you've purchased it for, and how many you've purchased. So this is, you've purchased 3. The minimum price you got them for was 15 copper. The average price you buy them for is 26, and the maximum you've ever paid for them is 55. So that is useful information to have, I think. Sale information is another useful one to have. That's down here. So you can see when you turn it off and on. The purchase information is that. Purchase information also includes these next 2 lines. So you've got your smart average buy price, which is in here. So that's basically the price you normally, the average for what you normally pay for it. That's your smart average buy price for that item. And then it tells you when you last purchased it. So last purchased that 1 hour ago. Okay, and all 3 of those lines are included in your purchase information. So you can turn that off if you don't want to see it, but I find it useful to know when I was last buying these things and what I normally pay for them, especially for when I'm buying materials. The next one is your sale information. So that's these next 2 lines. And that tells you how many of those you've sold, what's the minimum price you've sold them for, the average price you've sold them for, and the maximum price you've sold them for, and when you last sold one. And then your sale rate is the sale rate of that item. So you can tell if it's 0.7, it sells very, very well. And that's a pretty solid one to have there as well. But again, you don't have to have it if you don't find that's going to be useful for you. Just turn them off. I don't do expires and auctions. A lot of things I sell are super cheap but sell super slowly. And I sell pets and things, so expires don't really apply to me. But if you're selling very high ticket items and you're not, and expires are a thing, if something is expiring too often and you then don't want to sell it anymore because you're having to repost it too often, you might want to watch how many times it's expired. So it says here expired since last sale. So since the last one you sold, that auction has expired 2 times and you've had to repost it 2 times. If that number gets too high, you might want to consider not selling that item and doing something else with it. So that can be a useful one to have. Cancelling information, that just tells you how many times you have cancelled and reposted that since you last sold it as well. So if you do cancel scans, that could be an interesting one to have. I am way too lazy for cancel scans, so I don't have that one on there. Then you have your auction DB, which is kind of the meat and bones of your actual TSM add-on is down here. So all this is basically just information about your group, where you have it, how many of them you have, etc., etc. This is your actual TSM selling stuff. So you've got the minimum buyout here, so that's the minimum that is going for on your realm currently. You can see that's the top one there. You can have the recent value. You can have the market value, the current market value, the market value and trend, which is telling you that it's currently selling for 11, if that's going up or down. So that's a pretty useful one to have. That's new actually, so I'm going to keep that triggered because I think that could be useful. And then it will tell you the historical price. So if that's, for example, has a very high historical price, but then something happens and the price is vastly altered, being able to see that historical price can help you make more informed decisions on what you want to do with that item, because it could be vastly different. The region market value is basically the market value on your entire region, and then the market value and trend on your entire region, and your region historical. So all of this is just for your realm, and all of these are for the whole region. This is important now because they have merged all of the consumables. So now it is important to keep an eye on your region market value for those consumable items. So you might want to consider putting some of those on, especially if you sell a lot of those consumable items. I'm going to come back and look at this for sure because I haven't done it yet since they made that change. Again, you've got your average sale rate here and what your average sale price, so that's something to bear in mind as well. Under that you have your auctioning, so it tells you how many of those you have posted and what your normal prices are, what your min, normal and max price are for that item. Useful information to know. Crafting, I always like to keep this up because if you hover over an item, it tells you exactly what you need to make that item. And not only that, it tells you how much that costs. So the crafting cost here, you can see it tells you the crafting cost is 55 copper. And it tells you in brackets that that's 20 copper profit even. And then under that, it will tell you it'll list all the items you need to craft it, and it will show you their prices. So you can see exactly which item is going to be the ones that are costing you the gold, etc. So the crafting cost is just that initial crafting cost. The detailed crafting cost is the one that shows you the items, and then the materials cost is the one below it. Okay, so you can have all three, or you can just have the crafting cost up, and that tells you quite simply that crafting cost costs 55 copper to craft, but you can make 20 copper profit on it. So maybe that's all you need to know. Maybe you don't need to know exactly the items involved. Maybe you don't need to know the exact cost of the materials involved, but it's there for you. If you do a lot of crafting, you might want to have more. And then TSM shopping, that will show you if you have a shopping operation attached to a group, which we're going to talk about when we get to operations. Basically, that means a setup for prices that you're willing to buy an item at. That will tell you your max shopping price. So that basically, if you hover over the item, it will tell you that you don't want to buy this item for any more than 37 copper. Yeah, that's your maximum buy price on that item. So if you see them and they're posted for 45, you know that no, you're not going to buy that at 45 because your maximum is 37. Yeah? And then TSM sniper, if you have a sniper group set up for that particular item, it will tell you again what your sniper's looking for. So it'll look for sniper price below, say 20 copper or whatever, and then it'll pick those up. So again, it's all information. You just have to go through and decide which ones you want to be able to see, which ones are going to apply to how you're using this. I have quite a few of them on. I just like a lot of information. I just like to have a lot of information all the time, so I have a lot of them on. The next setting here is accounting. There's two settings in accounting. One's just clear data. If you want to clear your data, you can do it there. The next one here is just tracking your sales and purchases via trade. So if you wanted to also track things you're trading, like two players, and then if you want, or if you're not sure you wanted to track every single one of your purchases via trade, but some of them you might, you can turn this on or off to say whether or not you want to prompt to record those trades, etc. Okay. The next one is appearance. It's fairly straightforward. You can hide your minimap icon. You can lock your task list background. You can show the total gold in a header. Yeah. And then you can pick which color you want it to be. I think they're working on more of these as well. And then you can, or if you don't like any of those, you can pick a custom theme and customize it. Might do that someday. That could be fun. Or you can export themes or import themes. I don't know where you can actually, if there's somewhere like a bank of themes that you can import and export. I'm not sure, but it would be interesting to look out. Next one here is auctioning. So does it say cancel auctionings with bids? That means if you're posting up an item, you obviously have to put in a bid price as well as a buyout price. This option basically allows you to say that if your buyout price hasn't been met and people are just bidding on your item, if you want to just cancel those items before they go through so that make sure you're getting your buyout price, you can do that. Disable invalid price warnings. You might get a lot of invalid price warnings depending on how prices and things vary. If you don't want that spamming up your chat. Now again, if you don't have it spamming up your chat, you might miss those invalid price warnings, but you can click that on or off as you like. You can change the sound your auction house makes. If you want scan complete sound, a confirm complete sound, or an auction house seal sound, you can change all those to be whatever you like. Destroying enables automatic stack combinations, so that'll automatically stack your items. Show the destroying frame automatically. That means if you have something in your bags to destroy, it'll pop up automatically. And include soulbound items. So obviously if you want to be destroying soulbound items as well, like old gear and things like that, you can include those. Disenchanting options. Maximum disenchanting quality. If you don't want to be disenchanting your rares or epics, you can set it to uncommon. If you don't mind, then you can set it to whatever you want. So basically it's saying maximum disenchant quality. You choose your maximum. I disenchant everything I'm not using, so That's there. Only show items when disenchant values are above this price. So basically it's telling you that it's only going to show items to disenchant when the value is above this price, and that's 120% of what it is to sell to a vendor. DB market and buyout plus 50 and the destroy. So basically what this little thing says is it's only going to disenchant it if it's not more valuable to sell it. Yeah. And then ignored items. If there's any items that you just do not want to destroy, you put them in here. Yeah. And this is where if you accidentally add an item to your ignored items list, which is easy done because I think it's a right click, you can come in here to take them on or off again. Yeah. The next one is mailing. Inbox settings. Enable inbox chat messages. The next one is inbox settings. This is enable inbox chat messages. I believe that means it allows you to show up actual chat messages in your mail as well. Amount of bag space to keep free. So this means when you are taking all your items off, all your expired items off your out of your bank, do you want it to leave you one bag space free just in case you need to pick something else up or do something else with that thing? You can keep up to 20 bag slots free if you would like to. And then open mail complete sound. I have no sound, but you can put a little sound in there and it'll tell you when it's finished opening all your mail. The next settings here are the sending settings. So enable sending chat messages. That allows you to type a chat message and send that with an item if you're doing that. Send grouped items individually. So that means if you had a group, say you have a group of herbs and you wanted to send the group of herbs to your alchemist, if you click this, it's going to send each item individually rather than sending them all as a group. Can't think offhand of a situation where that would be useful, but there's a chance that it would be. So it's there if you want it. Restart delay in minutes basically means if you're sending a lot of items out of your bags, that's the time delay in terms of letting the mailbox refresh. Mail disenchantables max quantity. So this is the disenchantables. If you're mailing disenchanting things to your disenchanter, this is asking you what is the max quality that you want to mail. Like, do you want to be mailing your epics? Do you only want to be mailing up to rares, or do you only want to be mailing greens? Entirely up to you. Custom sources. These are your custom price sources. This is where you put in custom price sources. We're going to come back and talk about this when we're talking about custom price sources, because until then this is not useful to you at all. So the next one is crafting, and the first bracket in here is inventory options. So this is looking at what inventories TSM is looking at when it comes to crafting. So if you're trying to craft things and it's looking into your inventories to see what materials you already have, are there any characters that you wanted to ignore? For example, if you have a stash of ore on one of your characters and you don't want TSM to use that when it's doing your crafting, you can tell it to ignore that character. Again, with guilds, you can tell it to ignore any guilds that are not your own personal vault guilds or whatever. Next down here is your default price configuration. These come automatically in here, so you can leave them in or you can change them if you'd like to. The default material cost method basically says your smart average buy, so what you normally buy it for. There's your average buy. What the current market price is, what the crafting price is, the vendor buy price, and the convert price is. So it's basically trying to find out the cheapest way to buy materials and to set the price at that. Default crafting value, so it's looking at the minimum buyout, the market value, the market average, the historical market, and the region historical market, and it's taken into account your auction house cut there as well for that crafting value. And then down here it says ignored cooldowns. So basically when you first install TSM, you get up the TSM taskbar, which we'll look at when we look at crafting. But one of the things it includes is it reminds you to do your cooldowns every day. So lots of professions have very profitable cooldowns, and it will remind you to do those cooldowns every day, which is excellent. Unfortunately, it will remind you to do all of your cooldowns, and you might not want to do every single cooldown that your character has, so you're probably going to want to ignore some of them. Again, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But if you accidentally ignore a cooldown that you do want to use, you can come in here and you can take it off here again. So like I don't want to be making the Secrets of Draenor Engineering books anymore, so I have told it to ignore those. We're done with Warlords. We don't want to be making those anymore. So you can choose yourself which ones you do, which ones you don't want to be making, but this is where you find them if you do make a mistake. Macros down here, this is your posting and cancelling macro. So bound actions, you can tell it what you're trying to bind to the macro. I have everything bound to the macro except selling, because I don't want it to sell some things. So I have my cancel button, my buyout button, my sniper buyout button, my destroy button. Everything's bound to my wheel. The wheel goes up and down, so it goes both directions. But if you want it to only post when you do it up, you can do that. If you want it to only post on the down scroll, you can do that. And then you can set a modifier if you don't want it to try and do that every time you scroll your mouse wheel. You can update existing macro if you do make changes. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Browse and sniper options. So these are your general, you've got 3 brackets here for these. The general options, so these are for your buying options, whether that's through the general browse or the sniper shopping operation. This one says autofocus the browse search input. I'm not entirely honestly sure what that one means, but I have it came ticked, so I'm going to leave it ticked. This is again your market value price source. So if you want to use a different market value, the standard default one here is just database market value. But if you want to use your own market value, or if you want to use a different value in here, that's where you can put it in. And you can show a confirmation if buying is above the alert price. So if you don't want to buy anything that's say above 100,000 gold, you can have it give you a little pop-up and say, are you really sure you don't want to buy you want to buy this because it's over 100,000 gold? The default one that they have in here is whichever is either 100,000 gold or 200% of the market value. So if an item is 200% of its market value, or it's over 100,000 gold, you're gonna get a little pop-up saying, are you sure you want to buy this? Just to be, if you don't want to accidentally spend a whole bunch of money. Disenchant search options. So the minimum disenchant level, if you have a character that you're only leveling up and they only have a certain amount of enchanting level, you can put that in here, and it's then not gonna have you buying things that you cannot disenchant. The maximum disenchant level, again, if you've got all the way up to 500, you can change that depending where your character's at. And the maximum disenchant search percent, I believe, is how much profit margins on the disenchants, I believe. Again, these chems defaulted like to this, and I have never changed them. Then you have your sniper options, and the only option for sniper is the sound that it's going to make when it finds an auction, so you can pick your sound there. The last one here is vendoring, and in vendoring you can display total money received in chat. I quite like that because it means once you've emptied your mailbox, it tells you you've picked up, and then it gives you a big total of everything you've picked up. Your market value price source, again, the standard is DB market, but if you want to change that, you absolutely can. Here's where you do it. And then you have ignored items. I don't know why I have ignored that. So yeah, I use the list to manage what items you would like TSM to ignore from vendoring. All right. So if you wanted to ignore and not vendor any particular items, you can put them in there, etc. Or if you tell it to ignore items that you then don't want it to ignore, you can go in there and take them off that list again. So that was a very quick, very speedy, I apologize, rundown of all of the settings that are in the TSM settings bracket. That took quite a while. I'm sorry this video is so long, but like I said, there was a lot in there, and we can't really go on to delving into any of the other categories until we have that foundation set up, especially those tooltips. So I hope that was useful for you. If you have any further questions, you can drop it in a comment below, or you can jump into our Discord and ask us there. We'll be happy to help. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and we will see you back next week for some rock and roll play flaws and virtues. So have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.